The space station floated in the darkness between stars. It was called Nexus Prime, and it was huge, bigger than any city on Earth. Ships from all across the galaxy came here to talk, to trade, and to make deals. Today, something important was happening. Leaders from 20 different alien species were meeting to decide who could use the best trade routes in space. Commander Jake Morrison stood near a large window, looking out at the stars. He was 34 years old, tall, with dark hair that was starting to turn gray. He wore a simple blue uniform with Earth's flag on the shoulder. Behind him, his two teammates checked their datapads one last time. Dr. Lisa Chen was reading through notes about alien customs. She was smart, probably the smartest person Jake knew. She had spent years studying how different alien species thought and acted. Captain Ryan Blake stood by the door, his hand never far from his weapon. Ryan didn't trust aliens much. He had fought in too many border conflicts to relax around them. "We're ready," Lisa said quietly. "Remember, don't show too much emotion." "The Velkari see that as weakness," Jake nodded. The Velkari. They were the real problem today. One of the oldest and most powerful empires in the galaxy. They controlled most of the trade routes humans needed. And they made no secret that they thought humans were nothing special. The doors opened and they walked into the council chamber. It was a massive room with seats arranged in a circle. Each species had their own section. Some aliens were tall and thin. Others were short and wide. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked almost human. The variety was amazing, even after 15 years of Earth being part of this group. Jake and his team took their seats in the human section. It was small, just 3 chairs. Most species had 10 or 20 representatives. Earth was still the new kid here, and everyone knew it. Then she walked in. Princess Zara of the Velkari Empire. Jake had seen pictures, but they didn't do her justice. She was young, only 19 years old, but she carried herself like she owned the room. Her skin had a slight blue tint that seemed to glow under the lights. Her eyes were large and bright, and when she looked at someone, it felt like she could see right through them. She probably could. The Velkari were telepaths. She wore robes that looked simple but were probably worth more than Jake's entire ship. 2 advisors walked behind her, both much older. One of them, a gray-haired Velkari named Minister Corthan, looked worried about something. The meeting started. Various species presented their cases for why they should get access to the Orion sector trade routes. Some offered money. Others offered resources or technology. Everyone was polite, careful. These negotiations had been going on for months. Finally, it was Earth's turn. Jake stood up and walked to the center of the room. He felt all eyes on him, some curious, some dismissive. He activated his datapad, and a hologram appeared showing Earth's proposal. "Honored delegates," Jake began. "Earth requests access to the northern corridor of the Orion sector. We offer fair payment and are willing to share our advances in medical technology and quantum computing. We believe this arrangement benefits everyone involved." He kept it short and simple. Lisa had taught him that long speeches annoyed most aliens. He sat back down, feeling like it had gone well. The proposal was fair. Earth had things other species wanted. "This should work." Princess Zara stood up. Jake felt his stomach tighten. She looked bored, almost amused. That wasn't a good sign. "I have reviewed Earth's proposal," she said. Her voice was clear and cold. "And I find it lacking in every possible way." The room went quiet. Other delegates shifted in their seats. "This was more direct than usual," Zara continued, her eyes fixed on Jake. "Your species achieved faster-than-light travel barely a century ago. You have no ancient wisdom, no cultural depth, no technological marvels that we haven't possessed for thousands of years. You are children who stumbled into weapons you barely understand." Jake felt Ryan tense beside him. Lisa put a gentle hand on Ryan's arm. Jake kept his face neutral, but inside he felt the sting of her words. "Your medical technology?" Zara laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. "We cured every disease you're still struggling with 3,000 years ago. Your quantum computing? Interesting perhaps, but hardly revolutionary. We have systems that make your best computers look like counting stones." She walked closer to the human section. Jake could feel her telepathic presence now, pressing against his mind. It felt like someone trying to read his thoughts. He pushed back, keeping his mental walls up. The Velkari respected that at least. They didn't force their way into protected minds. But the worst part, Zara said, her voice dropping to something almost like pity, is your minds. So loud, so chaotic. Your thoughts scream out like children afraid of the dark. You have no mental discipline, no control. You feel everything so strongly and show it all so obviously. How can we trust species who can't even control their own emotions to navigate critical trade routes? She turned to address the full council. I ask you all, why should we grant Earth anything? What do they truly offer that has value? They are infants playing at the adult table, and we're supposed to pretend otherwise? The silence in the room was complete. Some aliens looked uncomfortable. A few others nodded in agreement. Jake saw Ambassador Troy Williams from the Tarkonian Commonwealth frown. The Tarkonians had always been fair to humans. But most of the others? They were waiting to see what would happen. All eyes turned to Jake. This was the moment. He could argue. He could defend humanity. He could try to make them understand that Earth had value despite being young. Instead, Jake stood up slowly. He picked up his datapad. He looked at Princess Zara for just a moment. Not angry, not sad. Just looking. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. Commander? Lisa whispered, confused. Jake didn't stop. He didn't say a word. He just walked. Ryan and Lisa quickly gathered their things and hurried after him. The doors closed behind them with a soft hiss. In the council chamber, Princess Zara stood frozen. She had expected anger. She had expected humans to defend themselves, to argue, to plead. Every species did that when challenged. But Jake Morrison had done something she never anticipated. He had simply left. He had dismissed her completely, no words, no emotion, nothing. For the first time in her young life, Princess Zara didn't know what to think. Minister Corthan leaned close and whispered, Your Highness. That was not the response we expected. The other delegates began talking among themselves. Some looked shocked. Others seemed impressed. Ambassador Troy Williams had a small smile on his face. Back in their quarters, Ryan exploded. We're just giving up? She insulted all of humanity and we're walking away? Jake sat down calmly. No, Captain. We're not giving up. We're done negotiating with people who don't want to negotiate. Lisa, start packing. Ryan, I need a secure line to Admiral Peterson on Earth. What are you planning? Lisa asked. Jake looked at them both. His face was calm, but there was something in his eyes. Something determined. Protocol Sigma. If they won't let us use their trade routes, we'll make our own. Ryan's eyes went wide. Through the hazard zones? Jake, that's suicide. Every species that's tried has failed. The Velkari themselves couldn't do it. The Velkari couldn't do it, Jake agreed. But we're not the Velkari. We're humans, and we're very good at doing impossible things. 3 days passed. The diplomatic summit continued without Earth. Princess Zara barely thought about the humans after that first day. She had other meetings, other negotiations. In her mind, the matter was settled. Humans were irrelevant, but Minister Corthan was worried. He was old enough to have seen many things in his long life. He had watched empires rise and fall. He had seen small problems become big disasters because people ignored warning signs. And right now he was seeing warning signs. Your Highness, he said on the morning of the 4th day, we should discuss the human situation. Zara waved her hand dismissively. There is no situation. They walked away. They gave up. It proves everything I said about them. Did they give up? Corthan asked carefully. Or did they choose a different path? Before Zara could respond, an urgent message came through. It was an official announcement from Earth's government. Corthan read it first and his face went pale. What is it? Zara demanded. Earth is withdrawing its request for trade access through the Orion sector. Corthan said slowly. They're announcing a new independent trade network. Through the Kessler Wastes, Zara laughed. Actually laughed out loud. The Kessler Wastes? That region is impossible to navigate. We tried 300 years ago with our best ships and most advanced technology. None of them came back. The gravitational forces alone would tear any ship apart. Yes, Corthan agreed. We failed. But perhaps humans have a different approach. They've been in space for barely 100 years, Zara protested. If we couldn't do it with thousands of years of experience, how could they possibly succeed? Corthan pulled up a data file. Your Highness, please look at this. It's a record of human achievements since joining the galactic community. 15 years ago, they cured the Zenthari plague. Every other species had tried for decades and failed. The humans used something they called modified viruses. A completely new approach. He scrolled through more files. 7 years ago, they ended the war between the Dracon and the Mirith, 2 species that had been fighting for 3 centuries. The humans ignored all our diplomatic protocols and just asked both sides what they actually wanted. Turned out there was a simple solution no one had bothered to consider because it wasn't the proper diplomatic way. More files. 4 years ago, they solved the Nexus 3 Stardock problem. The engineering challenge had stumped our best minds for 5 years. Humans fixed it in 3 days by completely redesigning the problem. Zara stared at the information. She had known about these things, but she had never connected them. Never seen the pattern. They don't think like we do, Corthan said quietly. That's not a weakness. It's their greatest strength. Meanwhile, Jake Morrison was very busy. His quarters were full of holographic displays showing complex mathematical models. Lisa worked at one station running simulations. Ryan coordinated with Earth's military command. The first test convoy is ready, Ryan reported. 12 ships, 8 human vessels and 4 Tarkonian. Ambassador Troy really came through for us, Jake nodded. Troy Williams had visited them the day after they walked out of the council. The Tarkonian ambassador had been direct. My people have watched humans for 15 years. We see something the others don't. You solve problems nobody else can solve because you don't accept that things are impossible. We want to be part of this. How are the simulations looking? Jake asked Lisa. Lisa smiled. 97% success rate. Our adaptive navigation systems handle the chaos better than any predictive algorithm could. Instead of trying to avoid every danger, we flow with it. Use it. The gravitational eddies that would destroy conventional ships? Our systems ride them like waves. And the shields? Jake asked. Working beautifully, Lisa replied. Traditional shields try to create perfect protection. Ours accept that we'll take damage. They just make sure it's not fatal. They adapt in real time, modulate frequencies, even use incoming energy to boost our power reserves. It's messy, chaotic, and completely unpredictable. In other words, perfect for humans. Ryan laughed. Leave it to us to weaponize chaos. A message came through. Jake opened it and smiled. Looks like we have more interested parties. The Orlan Federation, the Nexus Alliance, and 15 independent systems. They all want access to our route once we prove it works. Word is spreading fast, Lisa observed. The Velkari control of the Orion sector has been getting more expensive every year. Everyone wants an alternative, but nobody thought it was possible. Until now, Jake said. Ryan, send them all the same response. We'll consider partnership applications after the first successful transit. Any species interested must agree to equal terms. No one gets special privileges. No one gets veto power. This will be a true cooperative network. Back in the Velkari section of Nexus Prime, Princess Zara was reading more about humans. The more she read, the less she understood. These people made no sense. They took risks that should end in disaster but somehow succeeded. They ignored established methods and created new ones. They felt emotions strongly but used those emotions to fuel creativity. She found records of human art, music, literature. It was so different from Velkari culture, where her people valued perfection and control. Humans seemed to value expression and exploration. Where Velkari sought to eliminate chaos, humans embraced it. I don't understand them, she admitted to Corthan. Perhaps that's the point, he replied. We've spent millennia perfecting our understanding of the galaxy. We know how everything works. We know what's possible and what isn't. Humans don't have that knowledge, so they don't know what's impossible. And because they don't know, they try anyway. Zara looked out the window at the stars. What if they actually succeed? Then everything changes, Corthan said simply. The Orion sector trade routes are the foundation of our economic power. If humans create a viable alternative, dozens of species will switch to it. Our empire's influence will diminish significantly. So what do? We wait, Corthan advised. And we watch. And perhaps we learn. 3 days later, another announcement came from Earth. The first transit would take place in 1 week. Any species wishing to observe could send representatives. Journalists from across the galaxy were invited. Earth was making this public. They're that confident? Zara asked, reading the message. Or that desperate, another advisor suggested. If they fail publicly, Earth's reputation will be destroyed forever. But Corthan shook his head. I don't think they're desperate. I think they're sure. And that should concern us greatly. Princess Zara made a decision. I want to observe this transit personally. Arrange for me to be on one of the human ships. Her advisors looked shocked. Your Highness, that's incredibly dangerous. If they fail, you could die. Then I'll die learning something new, Zara replied. Send the request to Commander Morrison. Make it official. The Velkari Empire requests permission for an observer. When Jake received the request, Ryan wanted to refuse immediately. She insulted us. Insulted all of humanity. Why should we let her anywhere near our ships? Lisa was more thoughtful. Because having a Velkari princess witness our success will be more powerful than any argument we could make. If she sees it herself, she can't deny it. Jake looked at the request for a long moment. Then he started typing a response. Permission granted. Princess Zara may observe from the bridge of the Pioneer. She will follow all ship protocols and respect the chain of command. If she can't agree to those terms, she can observe from a distance. The response came back within an hour. Princess Zara agreed to all terms. She would arrive 2 days before the transit for a briefing. This is going to be interesting, Ryan muttered. That's one word for it, Jake agreed. News of Princess Zara's decision spread quickly. Some saw it as incredibly brave. Others saw it as incredibly foolish. Some wondered if she was planning sabotage. But most recognized it for what it was. A young leader trying to understand something that challenged everything she thought she knew. In his private quarters, Jake looked at pictures of Earth, his home. The planet that had sent him out here to represent humanity among the stars. He thought about Zara's insult, about how angry it had made him despite his calm exterior. But he also thought about what came after anger, about choosing to act instead of react, about proving worth through achievement rather than argument. That was the human way. Not the only way, but a good way. In 1 week, they would enter the Kessler Wastes. Either they would succeed and change everything, or they would fail and prove Princess Zara right. There was no middle ground. Jake smiled. He liked those odds. Humans had always done their best work when there was no safety net. Princess Zara arrived at the human docking bay 2 days before the planned transit. She came alone without the usual crowd of advisors and guards. Minister Corthan had argued against this, but Zara insisted. If she was going to truly understand humans, she needed to experience them without filters. Captain Ryan Blake met her at the airlock. He was polite but not warm. Princess, welcome aboard the Pioneer. Commander Morrison is on the bridge. Please follow me. As they walked through the ship, Zara observed everything. The Pioneer was smaller than Velkari ships, more compact. But it didn't feel cramped. It felt efficient. Crew members moved with purpose. She noticed something else too. They smiled. They talked to each other casually. There was no rigid hierarchy visible in their body language. The bridge doors opened. Jake Morrison stood at the center, studying multiple holographic displays. He looked up when she entered. Princess Zara, he said simply. Thank you for coming. Zara felt confused. His greeting was polite but not formal. There was no special deference. He wasn't treating her like royalty. He was treating her like any other guest. She tried to read his emotions telepathically, but again found that strange calmness. No anger, no resentment, just busy focus on his work. Commander Morrison, she began. I want to say something about our previous meeting. Jake held up a hand. Later. Right now we need to brief you on safety protocols. If something goes wrong during the transit, you need to know what to do. Lisa? Dr. Chen stepped forward with a data pad. Princess, these are the emergency procedures. In the event of a hull breach, these are the closest safe zones. If we need to evacuate, these are the escape pod locations. Do you have any experience with human technology? Some, Zara admitted. She had studied human systems as part of her education. Though she had never given them much attention, they had seemed crude compared to Velkari technology. Lisa spent the next hour going through every system, every safety measure, every potential problem. She was thorough and patient, never talking down to Zara, but also never assuming she understood things she didn't. It was educational, not insulting. That evening, Jake invited Zara to dinner in the officers' mess. It was informal, just Jake, Lisa, Ryan, and a few other senior crew members. Zara had never eaten a meal like this. In Velkari culture, formal dinners were carefully orchestrated affairs with strict protocols. Here, people laughed. They told stories. They argued about small things, and nobody got offended. Lieutenant Maya Foster, the young navigation officer, was explaining how the adaptive navigation system worked. It's not really artificial intelligence, Maya said excitedly. It's more like artificial intuition. We taught the system to think like a human pilot would think, to see patterns in chaos, to make guesses and adjust on the fly. That sounds incredibly unstable, Zara observed. How can you trust something that guesses? Because sometimes guessing is better than calculating, Maya replied. Your Valkyrie ships failed in the Kessler wastes because they tried to predict everything perfectly. But you can't predict chaos. You can only respond to it. Our system doesn't try to know everything. It just tries to adapt to anything. Chief Engineer Carlos Rodriguez added, It's like the difference between swimming and building a bridge. Your people tried to build a perfect bridge through the wastes. Stable, predictable, safe. We're teaching our ships to swim. Less controlled, more flexible. Zara thought about this. It was such a different way of thinking. Her entire education had been about control, precision, perfection. The idea of deliberately choosing unpredictability felt wrong, but she couldn't deny the logic behind it. May I ask a question? She said to Jake. Of course. When I insulted humanity at the council meeting, you just walked away. Why? Most species would have defended themselves. Some would have attacked back, but you said nothing. The table went quiet. Everyone looked at Jake. He took a sip of water before answering. Because arguing with you would have been pointless, Jake said simply. You had already made up your mind. You looked at humanity and saw children. Nothing I could say would change that. Words rarely change minds, Princess. Actions do. So you decided to prove me wrong instead of telling me I was wrong. Exactly. You said humans had nothing to offer, that we were too young, too chaotic, too emotional. I couldn't argue against that with words. But I could show you that being young means being innovative, that chaos can be a strength, that emotions drive us to do impossible things. Ryan spoke up. Plus, you really pissed us off. And humans do our best work when we're angry at being told we can't do something. Everyone laughed, including Zara. She was surprised to find herself relaxing. I was arrogant, Zara admitted. I judged your entire species based on my limited understanding. That was wrong of me, Jake nodded. Yes, it was. But you're here now trying to learn. That takes courage. Not many people can admit when they're wrong, especially people in power. Over the next day, Zara watched the human crew prepare for the transit. She saw how they worked together. There was hierarchy, yes, but it was flexible. Junior officers made suggestions and senior officers listened. People disagreed openly but respectfully. When someone made a mistake, others helped fix it rather than punishing them. Lisa found her watching from an observation deck. Quite different from Valkyrie ships, I imagine. Very different, Zara agreed. Your crew seems almost informal, but they're also incredibly efficient.
How do you maintain discipline?
We don't maintain discipline through fear or rigid rules, Lisa explained. We maintain it through trust and shared purpose. Everyone on this ship knows what we're trying to accomplish. They believe in it. That's more powerful than any rule book. But what if someone fails? What if they make a critical error? Then we learn from it, Lisa said. Humans see failure differently than most species. We don't view it as something shameful. We view it as information. Every failure teaches us something new. That's how we improve. Zara thought about her own education. In Valkyrie society, failure was unacceptable. Perfection was expected. She had been taught that showing weakness or making mistakes was shameful. But watching these humans, she saw a different approach. They acknowledged their limitations openly and worked together to overcome them. That night, Jake found Zara in the observation lounge. She was staring at the stars, looking thoughtful. Can't sleep? He asked. Too much to think about, she admitted. Commander, may I ask you something personal? Go ahead. Why did you really let me come aboard? After what I said, you had every right to refuse. Jake sat down across from her. Because I think you're capable of learning, and because the Valkyrie Empire is important. If we're going to change the galaxy, we need the powerful empires to understand us, not fear us. You came here seeking understanding. That deserves respect. I'm starting to understand why other species find humans so frustrating, Zara said with a small smile. You don't follow any of the expected patterns. That's kind of our thing, Jake replied. Tomorrow we enter the Kessler wastes. You'll see firsthand whether our approach works or whether you were right about us all along. I hope I was wrong, Zara said quietly. Because if you succeed tomorrow, it will mean that my entire worldview needs rethinking. But if you fail, a lot of good people will die, including you. We won't fail, Jake said with certainty. Not because we're perfect or because we have the best technology. We'll succeed because we're willing to take risks that others won't. Because we trust each other. and because we've learned to work with chaos instead of against it. The next morning, the convoy assembled at the edge of the Kessler Wastes. 12 ships in total, 8 human vessels, 4 Tarkonian, and observers from 15 different species watching from a safe distance. News feeds from across the galaxy were broadcasting live. On the bridge of the Pioneer, Zara stood beside Jake. She could feel the tension in the air. Not fear, but focused energy. The crew was ready. Jake looked around at his crew. Everyone ready? A chorus of confirmations came back. All ships, this is the Pioneer, Jake said into the communications system. We're about to attempt something no one has successfully done before. Stay calm, trust your systems, and remember your training. Let's show the galaxy what humans can do. Begin transit sequence. The ships began moving forward. Zara watched as the swirling chaos of the Kessler Wastes grew larger in the viewscreen. She felt her heart racing. This was it. Either humans would prove themselves or they would die trying, and she would be right there with them. The moment they entered the Kessler Wastes, alarms started screaming. The viewscreen showed chaos in every direction. Gravitational eddies twisted space itself into strange shapes. Radiation storms flashed like lightning. Asteroid fields spun in random patterns. And everywhere the dark rifts in space that could tear a ship apart. Zara gripped the railing, her knuckles turning white. This was worse than the data files had shown. Much worse. She could feel the ship shaking as gravitational forces pulled at it from multiple directions. But Jake looked calm. Maya, status? Lieutenant Foster's hands moved across her controls with practiced ease. Navigation AI is reading the patterns. It's showing me options. Recommend course adjustment to bearing 273 Mark 5. Explain that course, Ryan said from the captain's chair. The AI identified a gravitational wave moving in that direction, Maya replied. Instead of fighting it, we ride it. Use its energy to help us move forward. Ryan didn't hesitate. Execute. The ship turned and suddenly the shaking lessened. Zara watched in amazement as the Pioneer seemed to flow with the gravitational current instead of being crushed by it. It was like watching a surfer ride a wave, dangerous but graceful. All ships are following our lead, the communications officer reported. The Tarkonian vessels are adapting well to our flight pattern, Carlos called from engineering. Shield harmonics are holding at 94% efficiency. The variability is actually helping us. We're using the chaos to improve power distribution. A massive radiation storm appeared directly in their path. Zara had seen what such storms did to ships. Traditional shields would either deflect the energy, which took enormous power, or absorb it, which caused massive damage. Either way, ships rarely survived. Radiation storm ahead, Maya announced. It's a big one. Carlos, prepare shield modulation, Ryan ordered. Already on it, Captain. The system is analyzing the storm's frequency patterns. It'll modulate our shields to let safe frequencies through while scattering the harmful ones. The storm hit. Zara closed her eyes, expecting disaster. But when she opened them, the ship was still intact. More than that, the power readouts on the displays were actually increasing. We're using the storm's energy to boost our reserves, Carlos reported, sounding pleased with himself. The shields aren't just protecting us. They're harvesting power from the radiation. Zara stared at the displays. This was impossible. Everything she knew about shield technology said this shouldn't work. Shields were defensive. They protected by blocking or absorbing. They didn't harvest. They didn't adapt in real time. But these human shields did both. How are you doing this? She asked Jake. He glanced at her. We designed our systems to expect damage and chaos. Instead of trying to create perfect protection, we created adaptive protection. The shields know they can't block everything, so they focus on making sure nothing fatal gets through while using whatever they can for our benefit. It's messy. It's unpredictable. It's completely against every principle of good engineering, Lisa added from her station, which is exactly why it works where traditional methods fail. For 2 hours, the convoy navigated through the wastes. Each challenge was different. Gravitational shears that would have torn normal ships apart. Spatial anomalies that distorted reality itself. Fields of debris spinning at impossible speeds. But the human ships danced through it all, adapting, adjusting, flowing with the chaos instead of fighting it. Zara watched Maya work. The young officer never looked stressed. She trusted her navigation system completely, following its suggestions without hesitation. The AI would show her options. and Maya would choose the best one based on intuition and experience. It was a perfect partnership between human judgment and machine calculation. Then disaster struck. One of the Velkari escort ships that had been following the convoy at a distance suddenly sent out a distress signal. Zara's blood went cold. That ship carried 50 of her father's elite guards, warriors who had served the Empire for decades. What happened? Ryan demanded. The Velkari ship tried to follow us but used their own navigation systems, the communications officer reported. They took a hit from a gravitational shear. Engines are failing. They're being pulled toward a spatial rift. Zara could see it on the view screen. The proud Velkari vessel, now helpless, spinning slowly as invisible forces dragged it toward certain destruction. In less than 5 minutes, it would be torn apart. We have to help them, Zara said, turning to Jake. Those are my people. Ryan was already calculating. Jake, the gravitational forces near that rift will tear us apart too. We'd have to get close enough to grab them with tractor beams, which means entering the same death zone that's killing them. Can we do it? Jake asked Maya. Maya stared at her displays, her fingers flying over the controls.
The AI says it's impossible.
The forces are too strong. We'd need to get within 200 meters and the gravitational pull would trap us too. What do you say? Jake pressed. Maya looked up at him. I say impossible is just a word. If we time it perfectly, ride the gravitational waves just right, and Carlos can give us maximum power at exactly the right moment. We might pull it off. Might. Jake didn't hesitate. Do it, all ships, hold position. We're going in. Commander, you can't, Zara protested. You'll die trying to save them. After everything I said to your people, you don't owe us this. Jake looked at her steadily. Princess, those are people. Living, breathing people with families waiting for them to come home. Nothing you said changes that. We don't leave people behind when we can save them. That's what makes us human. The Pioneer broke formation and accelerated toward the disabled Velkari ship. Zara watched the distance close on the displays. 2,000 meters. 1,000. 500. The ship started shaking violently as the gravitational forces intensified. Shields at maximum, Carlos called out. I'm routing all non-essential power to structural integrity. We're being pulled toward the rift, Maya reported, her voice tight with concentration. Compensating. Need more power to the engines? You've got it, Carlos replied. But we can't maintain this for long. 200 meters. The Pioneer's hull groaned under the stress. Warning alarms filled the bridge, but Maya kept the ship steady, dancing on the edge of disaster. Tractor beams locked on target, Ryan announced. For a terrifying moment, both ships were pulled toward the rift. The forces were too strong. They were going to die. All of them. Zara felt the pull, felt reality starting to tear around them. Now, Carlos, Jake shouted. Everything you've got. The engines screamed. Power readouts went into the red. The ship shook so hard that Zara thought it would break apart. Then impossibly, they started moving. Away from the rift. Slowly at first, then faster. We're clear, Maya yelled. We're actually clear. The bridge erupted in cheers. The Pioneer and the Velkari ship were both safe, moving away from the rift. Behind them, the spatial anomaly collapsed in on itself and disappeared. Zara stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. These humans had risked everything to save her people. People from an empire that had shown them nothing but contempt. They had looked death in the face and chosen to save others anyway. All ships. This is the Pioneer, Jake said into the communication system, his voice calm despite what they'd just survived. Resume formation. We have 4 more hours until we clear the wastes. Stay sharp. The convoy continued forward. The Velkari ship, now under tow by the Pioneer, came with them. 4 hours later, they emerged from the Kessler wastes into clear space. Every single ship made it through. The traditional route through the Orion sector took 36 hours and cost a fortune in tolls. The human route through the Kessler wastes took 8 hours and cost nothing except courage. The galaxy had just changed forever. On the bridge, Zara finally found her voice. You saved them. After everything I said, after how we treated you. You risked your ship and your lives for my people. Jake put a hand on her shoulder. That's what humans do, Princess. We don't keep score when lives are at stake. Your words hurt my pride, but those warriors on that ship have families waiting for them. Nothing is more important than that, Ryan grinned. Besides, we needed to prove the route was reliable. What better test than an emergency rescue in the worst possible conditions? Now nobody can say we just got lucky. Messages flooded in from across the galaxy, congratulations, request for access. News agencies calling it the most significant achievement in centuries. The Galactic Council was calling an emergency session. Everything was changing. Zara pulled out her communication device. She needed to send a message to her father immediately. She typed quickly, her hands shaking slightly. The subject line read, "Father, I was wrong about the humans. We need to change our entire approach to this species immediately." She looked at Jake, who was already coordinating with the other ships and responding to messages. He looked tired but satisfied. Not triumphant. Not arrogant. Just quietly pleased that his plan had worked and his people were safe. For the first time in her life, Princess Zara understood what true strength looked like. It wasn't about being the oldest or the most powerful. It wasn't about perfect control or ancient wisdom. Real strength was about doing what was right even when it was dangerous. About valuing life above pride. About turning impossible into possible through courage and innovation. The humans had taught her all of this without saying a single word of argument. They had simply shown her through actions, just like Jake had promised. 6 months passed. The galaxy looked very different now. The new trade route through the Kessler Wastes, officially called the Cooperative Passage, was handling almost half of all galactic commerce. The old routes through the Orion sector still existed, but their monopoly was broken forever. Nexus Prime was hosting a grand ceremony. Representatives from 63 worlds had come to sign the Cooperative Passage Treaty. This treaty would establish the rules for the new route and guarantee equal access for all participating species. No one empire would control it. No one species would have veto power. It was truly cooperative. Princess Zara stood in her quarters preparing for the ceremony. She looked at herself in the mirror. She was still 19 years old, still a princess of the Velkari Empire. But she was different now, changed. She had learned so much in the past 6 months. Minister Corthan entered. "Your Highness, your father has arrived. He wishes to speak with you before the ceremony." Emperor Calthan of the Velkari Empire was 400 years old. He had ruled for 3 centuries. He was wise, powerful, and until recently absolutely certain about how the galaxy worked. But his daughter had challenged that certainty. "Father," Zara greeted him with proper respect. "My daughter," he replied warmly, "I have read your reports. All of them. Your assessment of humanity was quite different from your initial judgment. I was wrong, Father. Completely wrong. I let arrogance blind me to truth." The Emperor nodded slowly. "We were all wrong. The entire empire was wrong. We looked at humanity and saw children. We should have seen potential. We should have seen a different kind of strength." "What will you say at the ceremony?" Zara asked. "The truth," her father said, "that the Velkari Empire has much to learn from humanity. That power and wisdom are not the same thing. That sometimes the youngest voice in the room has the best answer." The ceremony hall was magnificent. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy filled the seats. Cameras from hundreds of news agencies recorded everything. This was history happening in real time. Jake Morrison stood at the main podium. He looked comfortable despite the massive crowd. Lisa and Ryan stood nearby, both looking proud. Ambassador Troy Williams of the Tarkonian Commonwealth sat in the front row, smiling. Jake began his speech. 6 months ago, Earth was told we had nothing to offer the galaxy. That we were too young, too chaotic, too emotional. One person in particular made that position very clear. He glanced at Zara with a slight smile. She was right about some things. We are young. We are chaotic. We do feel emotions very strongly. But those aren't weaknesses. They're just differences. And differences, when respected and used properly, make everyone stronger. The cooperative passage works because it combines the best of many approaches. Human innovation, Tarkonian precision, Velkari strategic thinking, contributions from dozens of species, each bringing something unique. He paused, looking out at the crowd. This isn't just about trade routes. This is about a new way forward, not through domination by the strongest, not through control by the oldest, but through cooperation among equals. Every voice matters. Every contribution has value. That's the future we're building together. The crowd applauded. Then Emperor Calthan rose to speak. The room went silent. Everyone knew this moment was important. The Velkari Empire had ruled the galaxy's economics for thousands of years. What would the Emperor say about losing that control? Commander Morrison speaks truth, the Emperor began, his voice filling the hall. The Velkari Empire has led this galaxy for millennia. We have done so with honor and strength. But my daughter taught me something important. She learned humility from humanity, and in turn she taught it to me. He looked directly at Jake. When my daughter insulted your people and you simply walked away, I thought you weak. When you attempted the impossible through the Kessler wastes, I thought you foolish. When you risked your lives to save Velkari warriors who served an empire that had shown you nothing but contempt, I finally understood. Humanity doesn't seek to prove itself superior. You seek to prove that superiority itself is irrelevant. You measure success not by domination, but by cooperation. Not by what you can take, but by what you can build together. This is not weakness. This is wisdom the Velkari forgot during our long reign. Gasps filled the hall. The Emperor of the most powerful empire in the galaxy had just acknowledged human wisdom as superior to his own. This was unheard of. After the formal speeches, there was a reception. Zara found Jake standing on a balcony looking at the stars. She joined him quietly. I need to apologize properly, she said. Not the diplomatic apology I gave months ago. A real one. I was cruel. I was arrogant. I judged your entire species based on my limited understanding. I hurt people with my words. Jake turned to look at her. Apology accepted, Ambassador. Ambassador? Zara asked, confused. That's your new title, isn't it? Joint Ambassador of the Cooperative Passage alongside me. Your father announced it this morning. Didn't he tell you? Zara was speechless. She would work with Jake, represent both the Velkari Empire and the new cooperative network? He said you needed to learn from humans, Jake continued. And I need someone who understands the old empires. We'll make a good team. Lisa and Ryan joined them on the balcony. Lisa was grinning. So what's the next impossible project? Ryan laughed. I heard the Andromeda Alliance wants someone to build a permanent wormhole bridge to their galaxy. Every species says it's impossible. Sounds perfect for us. Zara found herself laughing too. Can I suggest something? Instead of humanity doing it alone, what if this becomes the first joint project of the Cooperative Passage? Human innovation, Velkari resources, Tarkonian engineering, and contributions from all member species? Jake considered this. You know, Ambassador, that's an excellent idea. The Cooperative Passage shouldn't just be about trade routes. It should be about achieving together what none of us could achieve alone. Ambassador Troy Williams walked up to the group. I couldn't help but overhear. The Tarkonian Commonwealth formally requests to participate in this insane human project. When do we start? As the evening continued, more ambassadors joined them. Each one interested in the wormhole project. Each one excited about what they could accomplish together. The conversation grew larger, more energetic. Ideas flew back and forth. Problems were identified and solutions suggested. Later, when the crowd had thinned, Zara found a quiet moment alone with Jake again. Can I ask you something? Of course. That day in the council chamber when I insulted humanity and you walked away, what were you actually feeling? I've always wondered, Jake smiled. Honestly, I was mostly thinking about paperwork. About all the forms I would need to file to activate Protocol Sigma. The insult bothered me, sure, but I learned a long time ago that people who need to prove they're superior usually aren't. Confident people don't need to tear others down. I wasn't confident, Zara admitted. I was terrified. Humanity represented everything I didn't understand. A species that succeeded by breaking all the rules I was taught. Rather than admit my fear, I attacked you. It was cowardly. And now? Jake asked. Now I'm still terrified, she laughed. But in a good way. Your species taught me that fear of the unknown isn't something to hide from. It's something to run toward. Because that's where all the interesting things are. 1 year later, the first permanent wormhole bridge to the Andromeda Galaxy opened. It was a miracle of combined effort. 63 species working together. Human adaptive algorithms controlling the power flow. Velkari energy generation keeping it stable. Tarkonian structural engineering ensuring safety. And dozens of other contributions from species large and small. At the dedication ceremony, Ambassador Zara gave the keynote address. She told the story of how humanity changed the galaxy, not through conquest or superiority, but by refusing to accept limitations and by valuing cooperation over domination. 1 year ago, I insulted the human delegation by saying they had nothing to offer, she said to the massive crowd. I was wrong. They offered us the most valuable thing in the galaxy, a better way forward. Not through being the strongest or the oldest or the most advanced, but through being willing to try the impossible and to bring everyone along for the journey. Commander Morrison walked away from my insult without a word because words weren't necessary. Action spoke louder. And now together we're speaking with actions that will echo across galaxies. Thank you, humanity, for teaching us all that the best response to doubt isn't argument, it's achievement. The crowd applauded for a long time. Representatives from hundreds of species celebrated together, not just for the wormhole bridge, but for what it represented. A future where differences were strengths, where youth and age worked together, where impossible was just another challenge waiting to be solved. In the crowd, Jake stood next to Ryan and Lisa. They watched the ceremony with quiet satisfaction. They hadn't set out to change the galaxy. They had just walked away from an insult and got to work. Sometimes that was all it took. Ryan nudged Jake. So, any regrets about walking away that day? Jake shook his head. Not even a little. Arguing would have changed nothing. Proving her wrong changed everything. Lisa smiled. You know what the best part is? She became one of our strongest allies. Sometimes the people who oppose you most strongly become your best partners once they understand you. After the ceremony, as the celebrations continued, Zara found Jake one last time. Thank you, she said simply. For what? For not arguing with me that day. For showing me instead of telling me. For being patient enough to let me learn. And for teaching me that true strength isn't about power. It's about doing what's right even when it's hard. Jake smiled. You taught yourself, princess. I just gave you the opportunity. You had the courage to admit you were wrong and the wisdom to learn from it. Not many people can do that, especially not people in power. Ambassador, Zara corrected with a grin. We're equal partners now, remember? Right, Ambassador, my mistake. They stood together looking out at the wormhole bridge, a gateway to another galaxy, a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. A testament to the idea that differences made communities stronger, not weaker. And it all started because one human refused to argue. He simply walked away and proved his worth through action. In doing so, he changed not just his own future but the future of the entire galaxy. Sometimes the most powerful response to an insult is silence followed by undeniable achievement. Sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do, and sometimes the people who insult you today become your strongest allies tomorrow. That was the lesson humanity taught the galaxy. Not through words, but through actions. Not through force, but through example. And the galaxy was better for it.